The sound of knocking startled me. I had just lit the fireplace, poured some coffee, and settled into my grandfather's old leather chair, the same one he used when he built this cabin 50 years ago. When I opened the door, a woman in a beige cardigan, holding a clipboard and wearing a frown that looked permanent, stood glaring at me. "You can't just put up a cabin wherever you want," she snapped before I could say hello. "This community has rules." I looked past her at the large wooden sign that said private property, no trespassing. The cabin sat on a ridge overlooking the entire valley. "I didn't realize I needed permission to stay in my own home," I said calmly. "You need approval from the HOA, she replied, "and you're not even on the registry." She didn't ask who I was. She assumed. 3 days later, she returned with 2 men in suits and a printout of HOA violations: improper structure, no visible address, unauthorized construction. "This has all the signs of a squatter," she said, pointing at my stone chimney like it had committed a crime. I smiled, sipping my coffee. "Ma'am, this cabin has been here longer than your H." She raised her phone, snapped a picture of me and the front of the cabin. "If you're not gone by tomorrow, we're calling the sheriff." The next morning, I heard tires crunching over gravel. A police SUV pulled into my long dirt driveway. "Mr. The deputy looked at his clipboard, then back at me. "Karen said someone was illegally squatting on HOA land." I chuckled. "Is that what she told you?" I handed him my ID. "You're standing on my land, officer?" He paused, looked at the address, then pulled out a map. "I think we're going to need to make a call," he muttered, heading back to his SUV. You see, what Karen didn't know was that I wasn't just the cabin owner. I was the valley's owner. My grandfather purchased over 2,000 acres of this mountain land back in the 1970s when he passed. He left it all to me, every pine tree, every creek, and every plot that her precious HOA now sat on. Years ago, he leased parcels to a local developer who built the HOA neighborhood down the hill. The leases were long-term, with automatic renewal clauses unless they violated certain terms, like threatening the landowner. I spent the afternoon pulling out old deeds, scanned copies of the lease agreements, tax documents. I even had the original property survey, the one that showed the HOA's clubhouse, pool, and walking trail technically sitting on my side of the boundary, and that boundary had never legally changed. Karen had been throwing weight. She didn't own land she didn't control. The HOA sent me an invitation to a meeting. I showed up, wearing jeans and a flannel, just like I always had. Karen stood in front of a large crowd, holding a microphone. "Let's talk about outsiders," she said, glaring at me from across the room. "People who think they can just build on our land." The room murmured. "Actually," I said, raising my hand, "I'd like to clarify something." Karen rolled her eyes. "You don't have standing to speak." I smiled. "According to Section 2 of your HOA charter, the landowner must be given 5 minutes to present any claims of ownership." That got her attention. I walked to the front, dropped a thick stack of documents on the table. "My name is Eli Bennett. My grandfather was Samuel Bennett. He built the first structure in this valley. He owned it, and now I do." The crowd fell quiet. Karen stepped back. "That can't be. We've owned this land for 20 years. "No," I replied. "You've leased it. And your HOA has broken the lease several times over by building beyond the agreed zones and by harassing the legal landowner." "That would be me." One of the board members turned pale, flipping through the papers. This all checks out," I continued, "which means I have legal authority to revoke all land use agreements. Starting today." Karen stormed out of the meeting. By the next morning, my lawyer had filed official notices to the county. The HOA clubhouse was built partly outside their zone. Their walking trail ran directly across protected wetland I owned. Their community pool was constructed without proper drainage onto my hillside. Within 2 weeks, the HOA received 3 violation notices, a court summons, and a cease and desist. Karen resigned from the board, but I wasn't done. Instead of evicting everyone or tearing down the homes, I held a second meeting. I stood in front of the residents and said, "I'm not here to ruin your community. I'm here to restore peace, and the first step is abolishing the HOA." People clapped. A few even cried. I told them I'd be forming a new land use council, one based on respect, not power, one where nobody had to fear some self-appointed ruler with a clipboard. Now, the cabin sits just where it always has, quiet, nestled between the trees, smoke drifting up from the chimney. Every so often I get visitors from the neighborhood. They bring cookies, or firewood, or just want to say thank you. Karen moved out 2 months later. Word is she tried to start another HOA in a nearby town. But here, in this valley, we remember. This land doesn't belong to the loudest voice or the biggest ego. It belongs to those who honor it. And in the end, all Karen had was a clipboard. But I had the deed.